but Amanda, I did notice that you are wearing a little red pin. Did you want to tell us what that was all about? You might see a lot of staff wearing them around campus.
Yes, so this is the Ask Me button pin. So that's worn if you find yourself on campus, physically on campus this fall, and you see someone wearing an Ask Me pin within the first usually like week to month of the school season, it's a staff member. So if you've got questions about where to go or, you're looking for something and you see somebody walking by with a red Ask Me pin, feel free to stop them and ask them your question. So, as Chris said, we are a very large community here at Carleton, and we're here to support students. So feel free to ask us questions. That's a great question, Sinclair. So we're going to move on to our next session, which is PMC 101. And I'm pleased to introduce my colleague, Somi Tam, who is a Senior Disabilities Coordinator here at PMC. So Somi, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Amanda, for that introduction. As mentioned, my name is Somi. I'm a Senior Disability Advisor at the Paul Menton Centre. So I'm going to have my co-presenter, Candace, who will be available to answer questions at the end of this presentation. So the focus of PMC 101 is really an overview of PMC services and how you can access these services. In my role as the Senior Disability Coordinator, I have had the privilege of working with thousands of students over the past 20 years. So I look forward to meeting you in person when we return to campus at some point. So today I'm going to talk about briefly the staff of the Paul Menton Centre, the mandate, the integrated model that we use to deliver services. I'm going to talk about academic accommodation and the 4 easy steps on how to access accommodation support services, as well as some of the Paul Menton Centre support services that we offer, as well as some campus services that are offered specifically for students with disability. And I will provide some information about financial resources, and then I'll share with you some tips for a successful transitions. Next slide, please. So this is the staff of the Paul Menton Centre. This picture was taken at the 75th anniversary of Carleton University. As you can see, this is a happy, warm bunch of people. So on behalf of the rest of the staff, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you, to our PMC family and the rest of the community. So since the inception of the Paul Menton Centre in 1990, the staff here has been on the forefront of creating innovative programs and services to serve an increasingly growing and diverse population of students with disability. So today, the staff at the Paul Menton Centre serve over 3,600 students with disability in the pursuit of their university education. The team is a multidisciplinary group of professionals with background in education, social work, and counseling. So the Paul Menton Centre, the mandate has 3 important pillars. Our primary mandate is to provide individualized academic accommodation and support services to students with disability while maintaining academic standards. Our second mandate is to provide students development opportunities for students to develop independence and resilience while they're in university. These skills development opportunity are available through the Paul Menton Centre as well in the larger Carleton community. Our third mandate is the integration of students with disability into the community. PMC work closely with campus partner to ensure services are accessible. So students with disability are members of the Carleton community, first and foremost. Like all other students, they're subject to the same rights and responsibilities that membership entails. So similarly, students with disability have access to all services and facilities that are available to all other students on campus. The Paul Menton Centre, this is the how we deliver our services. So or in other words, how we actualize our mandate through the creation of services and processes in collaboration with our campus partner. As Chris mentioned earlier, it really is teamwork. We're a large community, but we are also a very close-knit and integrated community. So we work well together to ensure that students with disability are supported while they're here at Carleton. Just to give you an example, under accommodation, we work closely with professors and the McIntyre Exam Center to deliver exam and accommodation, and classroom accommodation. So under student development, we provide services for students to learn to be better learners through our learning support program. And under campus services, we work closely with other student services such as Students Affairs, Health and Counseling Services to coordinate circle of support for mental health. So as mentioned previously, the accommodation of students with disability at Carleton is a shared responsibility. So it takes a village to realize our mandates. So PMC work closely in partnership with professors and student service departments to deliver these services to you in a very integrated and seamless manner. The diagram illustrates the extent of this interconnectivity and the collaboration with campus partners. So in the academic accommodation policy for students with disability, PMC is the designated department on campus to coordinate the delivery of accommodation services to students with disability on campus. The Paul Menton Centre plays a central role in the evaluation of disability documentation and also in the assessment of individualized academic accommodation requests while maintaining academic standards. So as a students with disability, it is your responsibility to self-identify to the Paul Menton Centre for accommodation, provide documentation, and participate in the accommodation process. The policy also specifies roles and responsibility of the Paul Menton Centre, students and faculty in the accommodation process. So I think Chris mentioned this earlier about the letter of accommodation that is sent to professors. So this document is the formal document through which you request accommodation from your coordinator each term. So in the university, when we talk about appropriate accommodation, we talk about accommodation that help students to access the curriculum and to demonstrate learning. They are there to level the playing field without compromising academic standards, essential requirements, or competencies. So they're assessed on an individual basis based on functional impairment that students experience in the context of the university. They are not modification to fundamental skills or knowledge. They're there to provide level playing field, but whether you're successful is, I guess, is up to you. Lastly, I want to mention that appropriate accommodation are negotiated between the Paul Menton Centre students and the course instructor. The responsibility of the Paul Menton Centre, we're responsible as coordinators to meet with students at the beginning of each term to send letters of accommodation to your professor. And we are also responsible for coordinating classroom accommodations, such as our peer note sharing service, sign language interpreter services, captioning, etc., in collaboration with your professors. So we have an excellent team of student support service providers. You may have seen some of them in the picture earlier. So it's a really good, efficient, dedicated team who work behind the scene to provide these services. As mentioned, we work with the McIntyre Exam Center. You will hear a lot about them during the course of your academic studies at Carleton. Have you booked your test and exam at the MEC? So, so in order for you to write your test and exam at MEC, your professor has to submit a test booking to the center. whether it is an online test or an in-person test. And we also responsible for providing individualized learning support services, such as learning strategies and assistive technology. So Amanda is one knowledgeable learning strategist and very enthusiastic, as well. Okay, so and finally, we assist you in the resolution of any problem that may arise between you and your professors over academic accommodation. So, and then lastly, we provide information, advice, and resources. Okay, next slide. So as a student, you're expected to participate in the accommodation process. So what does this mean? At the beginning of each term, you would need to request accommodation from your PMC coordinator. So you can do so in a number of ways through My PMC, which is our portal system. You can book an appointment through the front desk. We are available to meet with you in person, remotely on the phone, or through Teams. As part of your responsibility, and sometimes because your coordinators are experienced or aware of how accommodation work in the post-secondary context. So don't be afraid to try accommodation, reasonable accommodation that they suggest. As mentioned earlier, follow up with your professor once the letter accommodation has been sent to them to discuss how the accommodation are to be arranged and implemented. Advise your PMC coordinator if you experience any problem or issues anytime during the term. Send them an email, book an appointment with them through the front desk. Monitor your learning and mental health and seek support when necessary. So always check your Carleton email for communication from the university. I think Professor Mott's already talked about the responsibility of professors in the accommodation process. So in my opinion, I think they play a very important role. We would not be able to do what we do without their collaboration. So it takes a village, it requires teamwork. So when your PMC coordinator sends letters of accommodation to your professor, it is a formal request for accommodation. So your letter of accommodation is effective from that date that's being sent. So as mentioned, some of the responsibility includes informing teaching assistant of your accommodation needs, if applicable. They're responsible for meeting with you to discuss how the accommodation ought to be implemented. They're also responsible for submitting online test booking to the McIntyre Exam Center if they need help providing accommodation for online in-person test and exam. So for online test and exam, they have the option of either applying the extra time themselves in Brightspace, or they can ask the McIntyre Exam Center to do on their behalf. So they're also responsible for making an announcement in Brightspace that a volunteer note taker is needed if you have that accommodation. If you haven't already done so, please contact the Paul Menton Centre front desk, pmc@carleton.ca, to book a follow-up appointment with your coordinator to discuss accommodation and to have your letters of accommodation sent to your professor. So before you do, as mentioned by Professor Mott, it's very important to get to know your course outlines really well. What I usually recommend students to look at are usually the course evaluation scheme, to look at what type of evaluation you're going to expect, what type of tests, how many assignments, and when do they do those kind of things. And so during the meeting with your coordinator, you will be discussing what accommodation you will need for each course. And the accommodation can vary depending whether the courses are delivered online or in person. And then your coordinator would be responsible for sending your letters of accommodation to your professor They would set up any service referral and they review the accommodation procedures and responsibility. This is a letter accommodation, so what it looks like. So specified accommodation recommended for test and exam and for classrooms. As mentioned, I think we already talked about this, follow up with each professor, lab instructor, or TA to discuss the implementation of your accommodation. Send them an email, schedule a virtual meeting. If applicable, go to the office hours. But I think in the fall term, I don't think there's going to be a lot of in-person office hours. So what to discuss with your professor for online courses. So for online courses, it's really about the extra time for fixed duration tests that you're going to have in your courses. So the discussion would be around who's going to arrange for it. Are they going to do it, or are they going to ask the McIntyre Exam Center to do it? And if you have volunteer note-taking as a support, for them to make announcement or post a notice invite space for a volunteer. So for in-person, it's a little more complex, I guess, because we're looking at a physical classroom environment, and also that test and exam will be done in person. So in the fall term, the only courses that qualify for in-person testing are those that are labeled in person, not suitable for online students. So that is the only category or type of course that is eligible for in-person testing. So if you've taken one of those courses, discuss booking the McIntyre Exam Center so that you can go to the exam center to write your test and exam with accommodation. During the meeting, you're not required to disclose the nature of your disability. Step 3, so I mentioned monitor your academic progress and mental health throughout the term and advise your PMC coordinator of any problems with your accommodation. So to assess how well you are learning or whether the support strategy you are using are working, ask yourself these questions. How are my accommodation and support services working for me? Are they more than I need? Do they need to be changed and modified? What are the services that are available at PMC and on campus to help me with my issues or needs? So on this event live page, there's an extensive FAQs prepared on a number of topics that you can review if you have further questions. So I want to highlight some PMC support services that support learning and mental health and well-being. So as part of PMC Learning Support Program, we offer online workshop on time management, note-taking, academic writing, and how to study for exam. In addition, we offer one-on-one learning strategy support for students. So ask your PMC coordinator for a referral. We also have 2 assistive technologists, Jordan and Jason, who can meet with you to explore assistive technology, provide training and support to use AT. If you are interested to find out more about AT, just ask your PMC coordinator. We also offer disability counseling and motivational coaching through the interns from the Master in Education Counseling Program. So again, ask for a referral from your PMC coordinator. New this year, we're starting a support group for students who have ADHD. So stay tuned for more information about that. And we will be bringing back virtual study pods in the fall term. The intent is to provide virtual forum for students who have been isolated at home during lockdown to study together in a virtual environment. So PMC worked closely with other campus partners. So I guess I'm just gonna give a big shout out to Career Services. We've been working closely with them to support students with disability in 2 important ways. Through their ACT advising. So that person is Nicole, and she has a background in disability as well as employment and career. So, if you have questions about job search, personal marketing through resume, LinkedIn, networking, interviewing and salary negotiations, she's the person to consult. In addition, we have an Act to Employ program. So this program helps students with disability to gain experiential experience through paid part-time work on campus. We also work closely with the library to provide transcription services for students who require accessible format due to a print disability. They also have a assistive technology center in the library with 10 individual rooms equipped with various levels of technology. So anyway, if you're interested in using this space, ask for a referral from your PMC coordinator. So as mentioned earlier, we work closely with scheduling and exam services to deliver online and also in-person test and exam accommodations. So financial resources, this OSAP, which is the financial aid program funded by the federal and provincial government for post-secondary students. For more information about this program and how to apply, please check out the FAQ. The Wards and Financial Aid Office website contains a lot of information about entrance bursary, bursary for current or returning students. They also contain a list of awards for students with disability, worth checking out. For graduate students, go to the FGPA website for information on external, internal, and special awards for graduate students. And lastly, the National Educational Associations of Disabled Students website. Go to disabilityawards.ca. It's a really good resource. Tips for a successful transition. Get to know Brightspace, as Chris mentioned earlier. Get to know your professor and teaching assistants. Get to know campus services and resources to help support your academic, mental health, and social well-being. Participate in the social and extracurricular aspect of university life. Check out the Students Experience Office for programs and events, as well as CUSA clubs and society. Know when to reach out for help and support. If you do not know to whom to reach out, start with your PMC coordinator. So thank you for listening. We have reached the end of the presentation. I just want to talk about deadlines. Be very mindful of deadlines. So you can go to the registrar office website to find out what are the academic deadlines for this academic year. Request your accommodation early. Keep track of your deadlines for assignments in the term. You know, there's only 12 weeks in the term, and if you need help with time management, you can ask your PMC coordinator for referral to learning strategy support. So anyway, check out our FAQs on the PMC Fall Orientation webpage, and we're done. We're here to support you. Have a good year.
All right, Somi, are you ready for a few questions from the students?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so one student is asking, can I register with the PMC using my IEP from high school?
We prefer primary documentation, so we will accept IEP as supplemental documentation. But if the IEP is all you have, we will take a look at it, and if we're able to provide interim accommodation on that basis, we will. Then what? Yes. Does that answer your question?
I think so. How about we move on to the next one? Okay. How does the volunteer note-taking service work, and am I guaranteed a note taker?
It's based on, it's a voluntary system that works really well. Every year we have thousands of requests for volunteer note takers, and we are successful 90% of the time in filling those requests. So it's not guaranteed because of the volunteer nature of the program, but it is a very successful program, and we really depends on recruitment with the assistance of the professor. So we really rely on faculty making those announcements in class and also in Bright Space to help us find the volunteer note takers.
All right, I'm going to finish up with 2 final questions because I think they're pretty quick. One is, can I register with the PMC as a graduate student?
Yes, so we serve undergraduate students and graduate students.
Excellent. And then the final one is, can I still meet virtually with my PMC coordinator or learning strategist through the 2021-22 school year?
Virtually?
Yes.
Can we? Yes, actually, as mentioned earlier, we provide a lot of accessible options for students to meet and engage with our staff. You know, we are available to meet with students in person as well virtually by phone or through Teams.
Awesome. Okay, we have time for just one more question, if I can squeeze it in there. Does the professor get the accommodations set up, or does the McIntyre Exam Center make the accommodations for your exam? I think there's some confusion between what the professors do and what the exam center does.
Okay, that's a very good question, Candice. Thank you. So basically, I think, I want to go back to a point I made earlier that it's a shared responsibility and it requires teamwork. So basically, in order for everything to work, we require that students request accommodation to their coordinator early in the term. Once we get that request, we will send letters of accommodation to your professor. So your professor, and then we will advise you to meet with the professor to discuss how the accommodation is to be implemented. So basically, if you have online tests and in-person tests, so the professor is responsible for submitting a test booking to the McIntyre Exam Center so that they can provide the accommodation, whether it's online or in person.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to Somi and Candice. Candice in the back end providing the questions and Somi for delivering that presentation. I know there was a lot of information to digest. So luckily, the recording for this presentation will be available to you after the event, and you will all be sent the recording so you can look over it again. As Somi said, there's also an extensive question and answer or Q&A available on our event website as well. So check that out too.